Let's talk about how we reference cells in our Excel formulas. This is where the real power of Excel lies, because I can take the result from one cell that I've already calculated and reuse it in a formula in another cell, like I've done here. I have monthly sales volume calculated, and from this cell, I'm referencing this one and using this result to calculate a percentage. We're going to see how that's done in a few seconds. Now, how you reference a cell is pretty easy. Inside your formula, you simply type in the column and the row that you want to reference. And Excel will automatically substitute the value of that cell in your formula. For example, if I type equals K4, remember the equals sign starts a formula. What Excel is going to do is take the value of cell K4 and replace it in my formula. Cell K4 at this time is right here, and it says this is cell K4. Watch what happens if I type equals K4. In fact, when you type a cell reference, Excel automatically gives you a colored square there so that you know you're referencing that particular cell. And when I hit enter, I get the cell contents which say this is cell K4. See, it's that easy to reference a cell. If I wanted, for example, B4, B4 contains this phrase which says type the letter number into your formula. I'll type equals B4. See, and I get that result. Now, what happens if I want to do something a little more complex in a formula? Say, for example, I'm using the concatenate function, which joins two strings. Okay, I'm going to concatenate, and I'm going to start with K4. Another thing we can do when we're using Excel functions is while we have the function open, we can click on a cell or a range of cells, and that's going to substitute it automatically here. So I'm going to click on K4. See, and it says K4 right here. And I want to add a little space. That's what these quotation marks are for. Writing quotation mark, space, quotation mark. And that's going to add a space. And now I'm going to say cell M4. Like that. And I'm going to close my function and enter. And as you can see, what Excel did was substitute this value and this value into the concatenate function, and now I get this is cell K4, this is cell K4. The first, this is cell K4, is the content from this cell. The next one is the content from this cell. One thing you need to know in Excel, and that's one of the trickiest things when doing Excel formulas, is that Excel automatically updates your row and column references when you move your formula. If I have a formula on this cell and I copy it to the right, every time I move to the right, Excel is going to change the letter. It's going to go from D to E to F and so on. And if I copy down, the row number is going to increase. Excel is going to go 11, 12, 13, 14, and so on. That can really mess up your formulas, and you need to be careful of that. You need to always take into account that Excel is going to do that when you're copying a formula. Or else you can end up with lost references, or even worse, you can end up referencing data that you're not supposed to reference. Okay? So let me show you what I mean by that increase thing. Okay, I got a formula here. I'm going to type equals D10 to copy this value. In other words, Excel is going to substitute the value of cell D10 in this one. And as you can see, it says cell D9. I'm going to mark this in red so that we know that this is a formula. And watch what happens when I copy it to the right. See, now it says cell E9. And the formula, if we step into it, has changed to E10. That's because, like I said, when we copied to the right, Excel automatically increased the letter to E. Now, if I move 2 places to the right, to G, Excel is going to move my letter 2 places to the right, like that. And it really doesn't matter if I copy from right to left or from left to right. Excel is always going to keep moving the letter, like that. You see? D, E, F, G, and H. Excel followed the column number that I was copying into. Much the same if I copy vertically. Watch this. I'm going to type in here 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. And I'm going to reference value 1. See, now the reference says C12. Watch what happens when I copy down. There's two ways to copy. Like you can copy using these commands, or you can also drag this little cross here. Just go hover over the cell, over the lower right corner, until you get this little cross, then drag down. And Excel is going to automatically copy your formula. See, C12, C13, C14, C15, and so on and so on and so on. Now, like I said, you have to be careful. It's very convenient because I can copy a formula from here to here and always get my cells right. For example, if I'm doing titles here, the formula is going to automatically update. And that's going to be good because I don't need to step into here and correct it so it references this column and so on and so on. But it's also really dangerous because it can mess up your formulas. Watch right here. What I've done here is I've taken these two values, the monthly sales volume, and divided it into the total sales volume in order to get the percentage for that month in my total. But look at what happens when I copy this formula down to apply it to these other values. When I paste this, I get a bunch of division by zero errors. Okay, what happened there? My formula stopped working. Why did it stop working? Well, because right here, we're doing 9125 divided by 23164. And when we copy down, remember Excel automatically changes this number, and it's also going to change this number. These are both cell references, so Excel is going to change them both. And look at what happened here. The monthly sales volume, the upper number is correct. It's L12. But the lower number stopped being the total, 23164, and is now pointing to this empty cell. This empty cell has a value of 0, and therefore we get a division by 0 error. Same thing here. This one's right. This one points to an empty cell. This one's right. This one points to an empty cell. Notice that the cell reference, which was L16, has been moving down as I copy each time. That's how Excel calculates these kinds of things. First reference was here, so the next cell is going to move down. It's going to move down. It's going to move down. Now, the other reference was right here, so the next one is going to move one down, and one down. Now, this would tend to be a problem. In this case, you can see it's an error very easily because it says divide by 0. We just happened to have a case in which the formula generated an error message. But if we had referenced the wrong cell and there were other values down here, we could actually get a percentage result here. For example, if I had typed in, I don't know, if I was jotting down that there was a number for a store which was 1500, and right here I said, look, I also need another value here, that's 2500. I just wrote down a couple of values that I needed to remember. Like that. If I did that, it turns out I get a result here from my formula. I don't get a division by 0 error. And that's where I say that it can get dangerous if you're not paying attention. Because I just came into the worksheet, I copied that formula, and I said, okay, great. There's my percentages. I'm done. And I'm going to send this report off. And a couple of minutes later, or a couple of hours later, I get the report sent back to me, and someone's saying, okay, what's this? Why do you have percentages which are 1.21%, 2.03? I don't understand this. Or, how come between month 1 and 2, you generated 138% of your sales volume? I mean, that's impossible. And obviously what happens is that you have an error here in your formula. Now, what's even worse is, as I said before, you might have something happen to you like JP Morgan, who they didn't bother to cross-check, they didn't bother to question these numbers, and in the end, everyone thought this was right, and they ended up losing $6 billion. Just the same, you could submit a calculation in your company, which makes you lose a whole lot of money because you have an error like this one. Trust me, it's perfectly possible, and it happens more often than you think. Okay, so how do we avoid Excel updating our column or our row number? Well, how we do that is we use a $ on the letter or the number. As soon as we add a $sign before a letter or a number, Excel knows that it's not supposed to update that letter or that number. So if instead of equals K4, I type equals $K4, when Excel finds this inside my formula, when it says $K, it knows that it's not going to update the K value. The 4 has no $sign before it, so Excel is still going to update the 4. But the K is, for all purposes, locked. Let's try it right here. I'm going to type equals D11, which is the reference for this cell. Now if I copy to the right, it's going to update and I'm going to get cell E, F, G, and so forth. But let's add a $sign before the D and watch what happens now. When I copy to the right, I get only the cell D reference. Every single formula keeps referencing cell D11. Why? Because I told Excel with this $sign, the D value is locked and you can't change the D. So Excel didn't change the D. If I copy down and then check my formula, see, I get value D12. This value didn't update. It's still a D, but this value updated. Before I had value D11, now I have value D12, here D13, D14, and so on and so on. This is one of the first skills that you need to practice in Excel if you want to use formulas correctly. You need to understand how your references are going to behave. And you need to understand that if you copy this way, you're going to get updating references for columns, this way updating references for rows. And if you take these values and copy them down, they're all going to update the row. You see 13, 13, 13, and so on. So you need to understand how that works. It's not that hard after you practice it a while, but you really do need to practice it. Because if not, like we saw here, we can really mess up our formulas. Now, what if we wanted to do this correctly? Well, what we do is L11. This number, I want it to move down every time I copy the formula, but this other number, this total, is going to be fixed. So what I can do is add a $sign before the 16. And now Excel is not going to update that 16 when I copy the formula down. And now I get something that looks a little more rational. I can copy this and put a percentage on it, and I can either total these or simply use the AutoSum function to verify that it's 100%. That's one of those little cross checks that I was talking about in the previous chapters that you always do in Excel. If you're dividing a total into percentages, always check that your percentage is 100%. If you made a mistake, you're going to get a result different from 100% here, and you're going to know that you have a mistake. Another thing you can do is simply total these, see 23164, and compare against your sum, which is 23164. Since they're both equal, we know that our formula is working correctly. Okay, so what if we want a cell reference which doesn't change no matter if I move it to the left or to the right or up or down? Well, what I'm going to do is I'm going to add $signs before the letter and before the number. So let's say that I want to reference cell K4, and I want that message, this is cell K4, and I don't want it to change no matter how I copy that formula. So I type $K, $4. And now both values are locked, and no matter if I copy to the right, to the left, or downwards, I'm going to get this is cell K4 because all the formulas are going to be equal to K4. Excel is going to say value K is locked, so I'm not going to update it. Value 4 is locked, so I'm not going to update it. Now there's a shortcut that you can use to put these $signs. Instead of typing a $sign, press F4 on your keyboard. Don't press F and then 4. Now look for the key that says F4 and press F4. When you press F4, Excel automatically adds $signs to both the column and the row number. Now if you press F4 again, the dollar number switches only to the row number. And if you press it again, the $sign switches only to the column number. And if you press F4 again, your reference is simply without dollar signs. So by stepping into a cell formula and pressing F4, you can get different dollar sign combinations into your formula. That's really convenient so that you don't have to be typing dollar signs every 5 seconds. You just type equals, your cell reference, and press F4 until you get the dollar signs the way that you want them. And that's how cell references work in Excel. Like I said, try it out, practice copying and pasting formulas, and see how this stuff works in Excel. Thanks for watching this video tutorial. If you liked the video, be sure to subscribe to our channel and to visit our website, cubicleoverlords.com, for more instructional videos like this one.